And now we move to Canada, where a startling trend is emerging at its border with the United States. Illegal immigration by Indians into the United States has skyrocketed to raising alarms on both sides. New data by the U.S. Border Patrol reveals that over 43,000 Indians were detained at the U.S.-Canada border. And during this period, approximately 10 Indians were arrested every single hour while attempting to cross into the United States.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection made over 14,000 arrests of Indian nationals attempting to cross the northern border over the past year. Indian nationals compose about 60% of all arrests made along the northern border, more than 10 times the number of arrests made 2 years ago.
Now the surge reflects a broader issue. In fact, Pew Research estimates over 725,000 undocumented Indians currently live in the United States, making them the third largest illegal immigrant population in the United States. But why are more Indians taking this perilous route as they leave Canada and head towards the United States? Experts point to a mix of factors, including political repression, rising extremism in Canada, and a long visa delay. In fact, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau even admitted that his government failed in cracking down on illegal immigration. Now, this comes almost 7 years after he promised to provide refuge to all asylum seekers coming into Canada.
Some saw that as a profit to game the system. We saw way too many large corporations do this. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, with more and more Indians fleeing Canada, Washington has put its borders on high alert. Moreover, as Donald Trump is poised to return to the White House, he's promising an aggressive crackdown on immigration. Led by his border czar Tom Homan, Trump's team plans sweeping changes targeting both illegal crossings and Biden-era legal programs. And as the situation escalates, one question looms. Will the migrant crisis of the U.S.-Canada border dent bilateral relations between the two countries?
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn. There are two kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle and call it home. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway, temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home. So back to this year's plan. Historically, Canada's annual immigration plan just looked at permanent residents. The number of temporary students and workers that we admitted each year was left to the demands of the economy. It was usually a small proportion of our population, so it's never been a part of the long-term immigration plan. But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly, and we needed a lot of workers fast.
Canada is in the middle of a huge labor shortage.
Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels. So this year, we did exactly that for the first time. We laid out a plan that sets targets for both permanent and temporary residents. This way, we're getting the full breakdown of people coming into our country so we can prepare the homes and infrastructure needed to support them. Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our targets.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the #1 issue of all manufacturers across Canada. So we think there needs to be more, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada, because
Ontario is facing a generational labor shortage. 380,000 jobs are going unfilled.
It's no surprise that every sector has different wants and needs when it comes to immigration. But after the pandemic, they all came to us with the same message. After 2 years with closed borders, we need more people, more workers, fast. So we brought in more workers, and it was the right choice. It worked. Our economy grew. Restaurants and stores reopened, businesses kept running, but most importantly, in spite of lots of economists' predictions, we avoided the worst-case scenario, a recession. But some saw that as an opportunity to profit, to game the system. We've seen way too many large corporations doing this.
The government says the program has been used to get around hiring Canadian workers in some instances.
Far too many colleges and universities used international students to raise their bottom line.
There are the diploma equivalent of puppy mills that are just churning out diplomas. There is fraud and abuse, and it needs to end.
Because they could charge these students tens of thousands of dollars more for the same degree. And then there are really bad actors who outright exploit people, who target vulnerable immigrants with promises of jobs, diplomas, and easy pathways to citizenship, promises that would never come true. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now.
Immigration is primarily a federal job. We have the levers to rein it in, so we are.
This is a big change, a major cut to immigration, reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
A new string of measures to clamp down on temporary immigrants.
That means a decrease in international students, temporary foreign workers.
Canada's new immigration plan is straightforward. Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada, both temporary and permanent. Some temporary residents may turn to our asylum system when their visa expires as a shortcut to stay in Canada. Those claims will be analyzed and processed, and if their claim fails, they'll be sent home. This pause is going to give our economy and our communities the chance to catch up.
Now, the diplomatic tension between India and Canada began in September of 2023, when Trudeau linked the Indian government to the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen and a Sikh separatist leader who was designated as a terrorist by India. Just to reiterate what we just told you about the India-Canada relations of late, of course, the relationship soured over the last few months after Canada accused India of wrongdoing, and recently the Canadian government has clarified that it has no evidence linking the Indian Prime Minister, the External Affairs Minister, or the National Security Advisor to any serious criminal activity within Canada. And this comes after the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, publicly accused India of conducting covert operations in Canada that posed a significant threat to public safety. He in fact went on to state that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police had compelling evidence linking the Indian government agents to criminal activities on its soil. However, the Canadian government now says that it has no such evidence.